A top Democrat in the United States House of Representatives believes that President Trump's initial downplaying of the coronavirus outbreak has been deadly. Speaker Nancy Pelosi was speaking on a local cable news channel when she expressed the view that the president's initial denials of the severity of the impact had cost lives. This as the number of new cases surged by almost 20,000 on Saturday as the United States continues to surge with the largest number of cases globally. Sherwin Bryce-Pease joins us now on the line for more on this. Sherwin, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to SA Today.
Hi, Cynthia. Good to be with you.
Now, President Trump has decided that New York City should not be quarantined. I mean, New York City being the epicenter of this coronavirus, does that make any sense?
Well, I don't know if it makes sense. What I will give you are the facts on the ground, right? I mean, the view certainly from the people advising President Trump, part of his White House task force, is that because 56% of the new infections are coming from New York, they have seen instances, certainly when the stay-at-home order was made a few weeks ago, different to a lockdown that you have in South Africa. A lot of people left New York City, the epicenter. They went to places in Long Island. They then went down to Florida, and they then saw a spike in cases in that region. So the thinking was then if you quarantine the entire state or certainly the city, in addition to states of New Jersey and parts of Connecticut, you would then block people from actually leaving. So what they've done is instead of issuing a quarantine, they've issued a very strong travel order that says if you are in those high-risk areas, please stay put, except for essential services. Essential services like trucking, food supply, health professionals that might need to travel in and out of state. Essentially, most people who are not working in essential services must now stay put in New York. That has been the directive from the federal government and certainly from the Centers for Disease Control.
Interestingly, he did concede that, the heavily infected New Yorkers were a threat to Florida, which is a southern state, a very popular, tourist state. And there were also warnings by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo that, a quarantine on the New York area would hit the financial markets pretty hard. So is this what this is all about, that the financial markets are more important than lives?
Look, I think in terms of the science and people, you might have a hotspot in a place like New York City, but you are seeing community spread in all 50 states of the United States. New York City, New York region, the state might have about 54,000 current cases, but you are seeing spikes in places like Detroit, Michigan. You are seeing big spikes in places like New Orleans, Louisiana. You're seeing some spikes in Florida. And so the spread is moving around the country. So it's very difficult now. It's a similar argument to whether you close a border or not once you have the community spread within those borders. This is a scientific, certainly an expert decision that needs to be made. But in terms of now preventing the spread by quarantining a certain state, when you already have community spread in all 50 states, doesn't necessarily make sense. This is, of course, coming from a journalist, not a scientist. There were also, you saw just last week, pictures of young kids having their spring break on beaches in Florida, and those kids have then gone back to different states around the country. So there's a concern that countries that haven't taken some of the precautionary measures that New York, for example, and California and Washington state have taken are now going to be at higher risk. In fact, I'll quote the Governor Cuomo to you that said, based on the increased numbers of cases they were experiencing, he was giving a message to other governors and saying, we are you in a few weeks. So, this thing is everywhere in the United States now. So quarantining one area doesn't necessarily help with the community spread you're going to see in other places now.
Just a few days ago, President Trump averred that by Easter weekend, the economy of the United States would be up and running and life will be back to normal in the United States. To get a sense that he still stands by those words?
Well, there's mixed messaging coming out of the White House. Yes, his intuition or his gut says Easter, but the science and the advisors on that White House task force say differently. We've just heard from Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, that says the death toll in the United States could be anything based on current models between 100,000 and 200,000 dead. Millions and millions of cases is what the current projection is saying. Scientists are saying that by the earliest, June or July, is when the U.S. economy can realistically begin to open once this public health emergency has been arrested. So what you are hearing from the White House and certainly what you are hearing from mayors and governors are completely different things. In fact, what you are currently seeing in the United States is a great deal of animosity between governors that are critical of the federal government response, a.k.a. President Donald Trump, and Trump being Trump in responding. I mean, he was quoted as saying that he's not, I won't, if they don't treat you right, I don't call. So if a governor who's saying, I don't have enough ventilators, or the federal government isn't delivering the protective gear that we required for our first our first responders and health professionals who are fighting this on the front line, the president is saying, if you criticize me, I'm not going to call you, while this country is going through a public health emergency on a scale larger than perhaps many other countries in the world. So leadership in this country is not on the same page all the time, and that is critical, certainly, when you are trying to arrest a situation like we're dealing with here.
Sherwin, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated. That was our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, speaking to us live on the line.